Hello my lovelies, how are you? I know you're probably feeling really frazzled. I am. I always feel really frazzled at this time of year. But I want to talk to you about something that I do enjoy about this time of year, is it gives us the opportunity to buy big portions of meat. Now, I've been out and got this ham. There's a whole bound rolled ham leg. This is 7 kilos of ham, and whilst I could be doing it for Christmas dinner, I'm not. We're doing something a bit different this year, where everybody is bringing different parts of Christmas dinner to my parents-in-law house, and it feels a little bit strange because usually somebody's feeling very frazzled about cooking the whole Christmas dinner. So it doesn't feel anticlimactic, but it just feels, you know, kind of we're on a level playing field when it comes to the food this year. But that's not stopping me from going out and getting something like this. And this, I picked it up from Lidl, and for the 7 kilo it was £29.99, which I think is very good value. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cook this up and then slice it on the meat slicer and freeze it into portions. And this will do us for sandwich meat for quite a while. I just think it's, if possible for yourself and you have the freezer space, this time of year is very good for the bulk buying for things like this. So anyway, let's crack on with it. I'm just going to open this. Try not to slice my finger off. I did that earlier, trying to pick up a bit of broken glass. Now I'm going to leave the netting on whilst I cook this. I'm just going to put it into the pan here. And put that in there. And squash that into the pot as much as I can. I'll give my hands a wash. Dry my hands. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up to the boil and let it cook for 20 minutes per 500 grams. So because that's a 7 kilo ham, that is going to be 2 hours and 40 minutes, I think, if I've done my maths right. At which point I will probably pull it out and use my meat thermometer just to check. But it will be going in the oven as well, so we're not going to worry too much about that. Okay, I'll grab a jug and I'll start filling this up. Now I am going to have to keep an eye on the water level and probably top this up with water from the kettle throughout the cooking time, but that's okay. It's going to be worth doing, I think. If it was smaller, I probably would have put it in the slow cooker, but I want to get this all cooked at once and sliced, and then I don't have to think about it, worry about it. It's not taking up any space in my fridge because that is jammers right now. So it's just doing little things like this that don't require a whole lot of your time. This is going to go on, and yes, I'll be coming backwards and forwards to it, but it's not requiring a whole lot of babysitting. before I put the final lot of water in here, I'm going to move this across to the stove because it's incredibly heavy. So that's about as full as I want to have that. I'm just going to position this. It's on the biggest burner because it's quite a big pot, and let's put that on. So I'm going to let this kind of come up to a simmer, and then, or a rolling boil really, then I'll turn the temperature down so that it's not so wild. But whilst this is heating up, I'm going to clamp a lid on if I can find the right one. It's always a bit of a roulette going into this cupboard. Find a lid, any lid. Right, we've got the right one. So I'll put that on just to help bring the temperature up, and so there's not as much water left to evaporation. So we'll come back when this is at a boil. I'm taking a quiet moment just to add a few wee decorations to my tree. Now this is my tree. The kids weren't allowed to decorate this. They've done their own in the living room. And I don't know if you remember those dried orange slices, but I've been really looking forward to using them. I'm not quite sure what went on with the lighting here, whether one of the kids turned the light on or just the camera doing its own thing. I have a feeling it was one of the kids. But anyway, I've really been looking forward to using these orange slices, and I've been quite like decorating this year myself. So it's nice just to take a few minutes to do something that brings a smile to my face. And I really love the look of these. I'm hoping next year that I can have some more homemade semi-edible decorations. Now, I probably wouldn't eat these after they've been out because there's a lot of ash dust from the fire when I'm cleaning it out. But having these has just made me really happy. Yeah, it's something that I've made and that looks so beautiful. Do you do any home handmade decorations? I would love to know if you do, and or is this something that you would like to do? You know, it's been on my radar for a while, and I've never quite managed it. So I'm having a wee happy moment that I've actually managed to do something that's been on my wish list for a good while now. And the kids are all dancing around in the background. I've muted this video so you can't hear them because it was actually quite noisy. Mums can't get a minute to themselves at this time of year, or they're few and far between. Anyway, I promised Cora, my youngest daughter, that she could put one on because she was desperate, and she was so happy that she was able to do this. Now, going back to that ham, you can see it's at a rolling boil now. So I'm going to lift the lid up and just turn the heat down on that so that it doesn't bubble over, because I really don't want to be cleaning ham stock off the stove. It's an absolute bugger to clean off when it burns on. But this is going to blip away now until it's had its time. I'm setting the timer for 2 hours and 40 minutes now that it's come up to temperature, and it's just going to do its thing. So it's now had its time, and I've turned the heat off. I've got my giant I don't know what you call these. They're like roast meat forks. Anyway, I use them for jobs like this, lifting meat out of big pans, and it can be a bit of a balancing act. I'm trying not to get stock everywhere because, as I mentioned, it's a pain in the bum to clean off. And I'm just going to put this ham onto a cooling rack that is over a baking tray, and that's going to let this ham cool down and catch any of the drips. It's this ham I don't know if you can see, has come wrapped in netting just to hold it all together. And I'm going to take that off just now. And it's always better to do this when it's hot because it comes off a lot easier. As it cools, it kind of embeds itself into the meat, and so you end up losing a lot of meat onto it. So that's why I like to try and do this when it's hot. You are still going to lose a little bit of meat on there, but that's all part of the fun of just, you have to do a wee taste test, don't you? So I'm working my way around and just cutting this off gently, and I'll peel it off, and that's what we're left with. And let me tell you, the kitchen smells amazing, and the stock tastes pretty good too from this. Now, I need to make sure that this is cooked all the way through. I have cooked it for the correct time, for its weight, but just to be doubly sure, I want to make sure that it is cooked through to the centre. So I'm using my Inkbird wireless meat thermometer that I bought in the Black Friday sales. It's a really handy bit of kit. And it connects up to my phone, so I can see exactly when it's at the right temperature. I can set it for whatever meat I'm using, and then it knows what temperature the meat needs to be at. It also tells you the ambient temperature, so if it's in the oven, you can find out if your oven's running hot or cold. Mine, by the way, runs very hot. Something that I've learnt, well, I kind of knew, but I've learnt just how hot it runs recently using this. So I can very quickly see that this is going to be at temperature, but I'm showing you in real time how long it's taking to show me that it's coming up to the temperature. And I think it was 70 degrees Celsius that it had to come up to. Maybe it's 72, I can't remember. But anyway, the camera, I wish that had a focused. But I was trying to show you that yes, it was at temperature. So I didn't bother putting this back. I ended up putting it in the oven. I just completely and utterly lost patience. That this is the next day, and the ham has cooled down completely. So I'm pulling off the remaining bits of string, and I'm going to slice this on the meat slicer. And it's a really handy bit of kit. I'm finding that I'm getting a lot of use out of it. Maybe it's not something that you feel you would get a lot of use out of, but when we're using big joints of meat, it's very, very handy. And because this is getting portioned up for sandwich meat, it's just going to make my life a lot easier, and everything's going to come out in consistent size slices, which when you have members of the family who are spicy, consistency can actually be really, really important. So this is going to help out quite a lot. And as you can see, the slices are just falling off. That tray's a little bit too high, but it's fine. I'll just help guide it onto the tray. That's not a problem. And I don't know if you could see, but some of that ham had already been cut into. I couldn't keep the family away from it the night before. They decided that they needed to do their very own taste test, and so there's not as much ham there as there should have been, but that's okay. That's all part of it. Now I have portioned the sliced meat up into 500-gram bags. So I have got 7 500-gram bags that went in the freezer, and then that tub with the green lid, that is about, 400 grams of the sliced ham in it, and that's in the fridge, and we're using that at the moment. And then the container at the back was just scrappy bits that we'll give to the chickens as a bit of a treat. Some of it fell on the floor and things like that. So it's now Christmas Eve, and we have a bit of a tradition in our house about making cookies for Santa. And the kids, they were asking me, it's like, are you going to make cookies for Santa, Mum? Come on, Mum. So I thought I'd better get cracking and get these made because we had a few other jobs to do as well. So I have just poured some melted butter into the bowl with the brown and granulated sugar. And I'm just making sure that that is really, really well mixed. Kind of looking out the window, just pondering life at the moment. The kids have been so wonderful. Like this is the first Christmas Eve I've not felt absolutely stressed out my nut. They've been so helpful. It's been actually really beautiful, and I'm so grateful because there have been years where I've felt like a crazy lady, and I'm actually enjoying this one. Anyway, you just saw me put an egg in there, so I'm mixing that through and making sure everything's really well incorporated. Now, the kids decided it would be a great idea to start wiping down their wardrobes for some reason, the two younger ones. So they're looking for cleaning cloths, and I'm going to go with it. The next step is to put in some vanilla extract. So this is some that I made earlier this year. I'm just putting a wee dribble of that in. And then I need to put the baking powder in with the flour. So I'm just going to do that before I add it into the bowl. So I need to put a little bit of salt in with the flour and baking powder as well. That just helps to bring out the flavour of everything. And I'm going to add that into the sugar, butter, egg mix and make sure that's really, really well incorporated. These cookies are so simple to make, and they're really, really delicious. Now, my kids, they love the ones like the giant cookies that we get in Lidl, and these ones turn out just as nice, if not better, even if I do say so myself. So how, this really is something that I want to get into the habit of making every week instead of buying them. And I think that's something that's going to be one of my New Year's resolutions. Anyway, the final ingredient is, of course, the chocolate chips. So it's really important that these get stirred in very well because you want to make sure that every cookie has a decent amount of chocolate chips in it. And it doesn't take long to do. I mean, I'm showing you in real time exactly how quick this batter is to make. So I've lined a couple of baking sheets with baking paper. I'm just reusing this from cookies I made for Isla for school the other day. That's absolutely fine to do that. And I'm measuring these out with a small ice cream scoop, and it just portions the dough out evenly so that everything cooks at the same time. You can just use a spoon if that's all you have. Me, I love a good kitchen gadget. The kitchen is full to bursting with them, and I find these things they make my life easier. And especially when I'm doing big bulk cooking, being able to portion things out properly, just not only does it please me greatly, it speeds up the entire process for me. At this point, I've got a couple of kids hovering about the place waiting to see how much cookie dough is left in the bowl, and they're making sure that I'm not overfilling this ice cream scoop, so they can get some. Now it's really important that you space the dough out properly so it doesn't just all amalgamate into one giant cookie. Not that that's ever a problem, but I'm looking for individual biscuits this time as opposed to a slab. But I wouldn't complain if it was a slab. Anyway, I managed to get 14 scoops out of this batter, and the bowl and the spoon have been handed over. It took 8 minutes for the tray on the left to cook, and then the tray on the right took about 10 or 12 just because it was on top and I've got hot spots in my oven. So they are sitting there for about 10 minutes just to set up, and then they'll get transferred to a cooling rack to cool properly. And then Santa will get some of these. I'm sure he'll enjoy them very much. So it's later on in the day, and we're getting dessert ready for Christmas Day. Now, Emily had stated that she wanted sticky toffee pudding for dessert for Christmas dinner and that she wanted to make it, which I'm absolutely delighted with. So I said that we would work together to get it made, and we're following Nigella Lawson recipe. I've used this one before and it always works out really, really well. What Emily's doing here is she is creaming together some treacle and butter, and it is a bit of a workout, I'm not going to lie. I've just put in some dark brown sugar there and she's giving that a good mix. Now, the reason we're working together is, like, Emily is quite good at baking and she really enjoys it, but she has trouble with the sequencing. So I'm just there to kind of help guide her and help her to follow the recipe properly. Because we both really, really want sticky toffee pudding. We love a sticky toffee pudding. And, because it's for the entire family, there's 14 of us going to be there, we need it to work out. Anyway, we're adding in a couple of eggs now, and please excuse the terrible camera angles. I didn't realise I was stood in the way, so I do apologise. Anyway, Emily's making sure that everything's mixed in really well, and it's looking great. I have got the flour there, and I'm just double checking this recipe. And I think I've realised that I need to put in baking powder, so we're going to put that in. So I was apologising for the shocking camera angle. One of my goals for this coming year is to be able to purchase another camera so that I can film from multiple angles at the same time, and just produce better videos for you guys. Like, I know the type of videos that I enjoy watching, and I know that I'm not quite there producing the videos to that quality or standard. So hopefully in this coming year I can purchase a new camera and we can work on getting better quality videos for you guys. Anyway, we've added the flour and baking powder in, and Emily's just mixing that through. What I have there is a bowl of roughly chopped stoned dates that have been soaking in hot water and bicarb, and I'm just mashing them up. Some people let it boil on the hob, but this recipe just states that you let it soak for 10 minutes and then you mash them up, and that's what I'm doing. And I'm not mashing it too roughly. It's actually quite nice when you get a little bit of date in the sticky toffee pudding. It really does give, I don't know, it just gives you that extra rich taste, extra toffee taste, I don't know, but yeah, I really, really enjoy it. Anyway, now that they're mashed, we're going to pour them into the mixture, and Emily's going to mix that in. She's freaking out a little bit because things are getting sticky and she's not overly keen on that sticky feeling on her hands. But I think she enjoyed the process of making this anyway. So it was really nice for us to bake together and get this recipe to come together. I'm looking for my favourite spatula. Do any of you have a favourite spatula? Anyway, she's found it for me. The family give out to me for the way that I kind of organise the kitchen. And so So I'm explaining to her my logic in how I organise the utensils into the two separate containers. The ones on the left are food preparation, so like wooden spoons and whisks and things like that, and then the ones on the right are more for serving food. I don't know if you guys organise things like that, but it's just the way that my mind works. It's logical to me. So I'm going to scrape the batter off the spoon, and then we're going to put this into the baking dish that has been greased with butter. I have preheated the oven to, I think it was 180 degrees, I believe. Yeah, I think it was 180 degrees. So it's at exactly, well, what I thought was exactly the right temperature. But yeah, it's everything's good to go. So I like to try and get every last little bit out of the bowl. Emilie's just giving that a shuggle there to make sure that everything's nice and level. And that's how your sticky toffee pudding batter should look. So it's off into the oven with that for 25 to 30 minutes. And whilst that's in the oven, I'm going to get on with making the toffee sauce. So into a pan, I have got my butter and my dark brown sugar. And I am just measuring out a tablespoon of treacle. And it is very, very sticky. So be careful and try not to spill it on anything. It's interesting to try and wash off things. And please do not let treacle burn, because you will never get it off anything. So now that I've got those ingredients measured out, I'm just going to put them on a gentle heat and allow it all to melt down together. It's about this stage I realised I maybe should have started melting the butter before I added the sugar and the treacle in. But we live and learn, and this is a learning experience for both of us. Oh, all of us, because I'm taking you guys along with us. And I'm just popping the lid on the treacle, because with smallies running about the place, it's a disaster waiting to happen, leaving that with the lid off. And it's about this point I realise we're going to need a bigger spatula. That little one's just not cutting the mustard. So I'll scrape everything off it, and that can go for the wash. So we're going to leave this just to melt down and stir it occasionally, and we will come back when it has all melted down together. So everything has melted down beautifully. You can see it's this rich, dark, velvety, unctuous looking sauce. And I'm going to add in about 200 mils of double cream. Now I couldn't get a hold of double cream, so I've used whipping cream instead. And I'm just going to stir that until it is really well incorporated. And it will take a wee minute to come together, but it does come together very, very well. You can see it looks like it's sort of wanting to split at the moment. Don't worry about that. Just keep stirring, and it will, all of a sudden, you see, it'll just come together. So are you somebody who makes puddings quite frequently? I love a pudding, but I don't make them very often. So when we do something like this, we always really, really enjoy it. And let me tell you, this dessert went down so well with everybody on Christmas Day. You know, I was really quite pleased that Emilie suggested that this was the one that we had. So usually I'd go for something chocolatey, but not everyone's a fan of chocolate in my husband's family. So this was a winner. But really, don't like chocolate puddings? Something's not quite right there. Anyway, I'm just letting this come up to temperature, and it doesn't take it long to look like it's turned to lava, bubbling away quite nicely. So once it gets to this stage, you just give it another quick stir and then take it off the heat. And it's really, really difficult to resist the temptation just to eat spoonloads of this toffee sauce, but you're gonna have to, because it's not sticky toffee pudding if it's not swimming in sauce. Or if you're somebody who needs that, maybe make a little bit extra. This is beautiful over ice cream, by the way. The actual sponge, I put it in for 25 minutes to start with, but it needed another 5, so it had 30 minutes in total. Here what I'm doing is I am just poking some holes in with a skewer, and this is to allow some of the toffee sauce to penetrate in, just to keep the sponge nice and moist. So I'm just going to put a few spoonfuls of the toffee sauce over. Because we're having this tomorrow, it's really, really important that that this is put on at this stage. And what I'll do is I'll allow this to cool down, and then cover it with cling film and pop it in the fridge. And on Christmas Day we reheated this, and it was just delicious. Now the rest of the sauce is going in a jar to be reheated as well. I hope you've all had the most fabulous Christmas, filled with love and peace, and of course lots of wonderful food. Thank you so much for joining me this week, and as always, take care.